The photo on your screen is over 150 years old. It was taken at Wandsworth Prison in 1873 and shows 19-year-old Charity Dawson. She had just been convicted of stealing a 7-shilling gold ring. The newspapers shamed her, destroying her reputation. It was a moment of absolute ruin. But this wasn't her final chapter. It was the very first. 50 years later, in 1913, a national newspaper featured Charity. She was now a respected grandmother, pictured in her shop, holding her baby granddaughter named after her. She had become the matriarch who founded a family business that would last for over 120 years. How does a young woman, convicted of theft and publicly shamed in the press, become the respected matriarch of a century-long family business? The history begins with her baptism record in 1855. Her father, John Dawson, is listed as a hawker. This single word is the key to her childhood. A hawker was an itinerant trader, someone who lived on the edges of settled society, often in temporary accommodation, with fluctuating income. The 1861 census records the Dawson family's address not as a house number, but simply a caravan. They were quite literally living on wheels, their lives defined by movement, not by a fixed address. Even contradictions in her birthplace, sometimes listed as Kent, sometimes Cudden, highlight a constantly shifting, unstable existence. Teenage Charity's life wasn't just volatile, it was violent. In 1872, reports show her mother assaulting her with a stick and a poker. Charity told the bench she needed to find her own way of living because there was so much scratching and fighting there that it was not fit for a young girl like her to be there. This volatility seemed catching. In 1873, she was back in court for assaulting a neighbor. The court fined her 1 shilling or 7 days in prison. But what came next was far more serious. 2 months later, she was charged with the 7-shilling ring theft. Charity and her companion, Adelaide Smith, were labeled prostitutes by the press, a shocking label often applied to any working-class woman who was unsettled or deemed immoral. They claimed the jeweler willingly gave them the ring as hush money. The court didn't believe them. At just 19, Charity became a convicted thief, serving her time behind bars. For most in her position, that would have been the end, but for her it was only the beginning. Just 1 year later, in July 1874, a remarkable record appears: her marriage to Richard Smaldridge. This was her new beginning. By 1881, Richard was listed as a general dealer, and they had 3 young children. Charity, ever the itinerant spirit, even listed her birthplace as the place she married, as if her life had truly begun there. By 1891, she was no longer just a wife. For the first time, she had her own occupation. General dealer. She was officially a partner in the family trade. By 1901, Richard had upgraded to a fishmonger. It was a considerable step up, from itinerant trade to a stable, respectable business. In 1903, tragedy struck. Richard died of pneumonia, leaving Charity, now 48, a widow. But any thought of quiet retirement was quickly dismissed. She took charge of the business, stepping fully into her role as the head of the family. Her fiery spirit hadn't faded. In 1905, she was fined for a disorderly incident involving her daughters. The fishmonger's widow still had her fight. And in 1906, her business acumen was tested. A Billingsgate fish salesman sued her for a large debt. Standing before a London court, Charity defended herself and won. She argued the fish had been supplied to her son, not her, and that she never authorized the credit. This was not the frightened 19-year-old from Wandsworth Prison. This was a formidable businesswoman in complete control, defending both her name and her accounts. Then came the moment that redefined her legacy. In 1913, the Daily Mirror featured her in a story titled Granny Smallridge. They visited her at her shop on Guilford Street. The same woman once branded a thief, now celebrated as a symbol of perseverance. The article revealed her granddaughter's full name, Faith Hope Charity, a triple-name family tradition passed down from her own grandmother. Charity had become a living emblem of recovery, redemption, and endurance. She died in 1927, at age 70, in her home. The cause was myocarditis. Perhaps after a life that demanded so much of her, her heart had finally found its rest. Her will revealed the final, astonishing detail. Charity Smaldridge left an estate worth £1,828, the equivalent of roughly £150,000 today. A considerable fortune, worlds away from the 7-shilling ring that once defined her. The legacy Charity and Richard built outlived them all. Their family business, Smallridge Fishmonger, was passed down through 3 generations. In 1995, a newspaper interviewed her grandson, Tommy Smaldridge, the 3rd generation to run the Essie show.